Greetings and salutations, this is Imperator Vespasian and his trusty sidekick.
Hello.
Today we're having a look at the Ayyubid Heavy Infantry, also known as the Mamelukes. These troops were the primary infantry of the Islamic armies during the Third Crusade and others. They were normally cavalry. So normally they were mounted on horseback, but they're dismounted to fight. So they would actually be quite mobile on the battlefield, although the rules don't take that into account. They were heavy infantry and very well trained. They were professional soldiers. They were some of the few professional soldiers that Saladin had to hand. And you could rely on these troops to stand and fight, whereas there was a tendency of his troops to run away. These troops would actually stand and fight. They came to an end when Acre fell, more or less, because the core of the army was destroyed when the castle was collapsed. But they were the best troops that he had at his disposal. They're heavy infantry, but they are really trained to fight on foot, not mounted. Sorry, to fight mounted, not on foot. So they carry bows, and so because on the horseback they fire bows, and they also carry weapons to fight with in combat, but they are not heavy weapons. So they are not as good as, say, Crusader Knights, who are their equals, or are supposed to be their equals. Crusader Knights will always beat them because Crusader Knights have much heavier weapons and heavier armour. These troops don't have the heavy weapons and heavy armour, but they do have the training. So, in combat, they have a bow with 18-inch range. They're heavy, so they get a +1 under fire. Their save, their morale is 4+, which means your save is technically 3+ under fire. So that makes them pretty good, especially if you fight in a siege battle, because they're going to take less casualties if you're firing at them, basically.
Yeah.
Stamina of 6, not bad. Unfortunately, their combat is quite poor. Their combat is only 6.
That cost a horseback archers.
Yes, they're not trained. Oh well, they are trained, but then in combat they simply aren't as good. In hand to hand.
Because they're supposed to be mounted, but because they're fighting the English, they don't want to lose their horse.
Well,
it's easy to fight.
Yeah.
It's easy to fight on foot.
Yeah. And we've got same goes for most Crusaders. Oh, yeah. So they only have a combat of 6. That's quite poor for the heavy infantry that they are. In fact, I think in the rules, it's probably one of the worst. Big downside is they generally carried curved swords, which are called
Skiffs.
scimitars.
The
reason for this is you ride on horseback, and if you try and hit someone with a straight sword, your centre of gravity moves out to the middle of your arm, and you can fall over.
Or break your hand.
Beyond the middle of your arm, and you can break your hand as well. If you hit something hard, you're going to snap your wrist. Because you tend to tie the sword to your hand, your wrist's gone. You could actually lose your... If you stuck your sword in someone, you could lose your hand. It's dangerous stuff. So they carried curved swords because they would ride past soldiers and slash them with the scimitar, which is what it's for. It's for slashing and doing small cuts rather than trying to kill your enemy.
To wound them.
Yeah, to wound them. Because eventually, in 2 days' time, they're going to die of blood infection. That's what it's for. And also, you're not on your own. There's a couple of hundred of your biggest mates with you, and they're all slashing away as well. So you could ride past one knight and hit him 30 times with different men.
If it cuts through his arm.
Yeah, that's why they want plate armor.
That is a downside for them.
I mean, you could technically get through mail. If you do it, if you're riding fast and you slash with your blade, it will ruin your blade. Your blade's going to be blunt, But you could slash through mail and leather halberds that they used to wear.
That's only for here.
Against plate, it's going to do nothing.
Well, it depends if it's because it depends how far they've been in the crusade. Could be knackered.
Yeah, could be. And they didn't have swordsmiths either. They had to buy their swords.
I mean, let's be. If it's right, yeah, it means they've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
So it could be knackered by then.
Yeah. That is a downside. However, the Mamelukes also carried two swords. They carried a long sword, not a long sword, a medium-length sword, which is usually about 2.5 feet long, which was a straight sword, and they carried a scimitar for fighting on horseback. Unfortunately, the shorter sword, the straight sword, was not as good. It's a defensive weapon. It's not an offensive weapon. It's not heavy enough to do much damage. After all, if you load your horse down with loads of weight, your horse isn't going to move very fast and he's going to get grumpy with you, especially living in the climate that they were living in. So it's not the greatest thing to do. Crusader knights would have 6 horses.
Why?
They'd ride on one horse, keep 2 horses for spares, and the other horses were to carry different bits of equipment, and you'd swap them around. You also had each knight had a number of retinue to him as well. He had a servant and 2 squires. And
Do they know how to fight?
yeah, they could fight. So when you think of a knight as not one man, it's actually multiple men. These would actually have slaves who would accompany them into battle, who would usually ride a smaller horse, a cheaper horse.
Is this when the Crusaders used to feed them, used to either let the slaves join the Crusader army or go free?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The slaves were mostly Christians who had been taken prisoner, and they were forced into slavery. The men had the bit that makes babies cut off.
Not circumcised.
The slaves, no, not circumcised. They had the testicles cut off, and the women became wives, or well, no. You can marry them, and they became sex slaves. Nice people. And any children captured could be brought up as soldiers.
That's what they did all the time.
Which is that's where they became the
Oh,
genocide.
interesting is, Saladin didn't approve of that.
Not particularly, no. It annoyed him, let's say.
Because he knows that if you do that, it's just going to annoy the person you're fighting even more.
Saladin was aware of why the Christians were so annoyed, basically, yeah. But he was a pragmatic sort of chap. He can get around these problems.
You could speak to the guy, though.
You could speak to him, yeah. He was someone you could negotiate with, but as
Jerusalem.
as Jerusalem, yes. But as time went on, he became increasingly untrustworthy. For the Crusaders, not for the rest of them. He began to tell fibs. And when you tell so many fibs, people tend to say, stuff it. Anyway, these would have slaves with them. The downside to that is the slaves would pathologically hate their master. You take slaves in say, the United States, or the plantations, the empire, they were pretty well treated. If you forget what modern day universities tell you, there were very few slave rebellions because there was not much to rebel against. You were kept as a slave, but you were well fed, you were paid, not paid money, but you got tokens that you could spend in a local shop, you had roofs, certainly the way the East India Company ran. And also mostly you were born into slavery. These had houses and homes and wives and children, and suddenly a big hairy bearded guy comes along speaking a foreign language, takes your wife as his own wife, and takes your kids to be soldiers, and then cuts your testicles off. You're going to have been happy about that, are you? Really?
No.
No, you're not. And wow. So they're not going to be particularly trustworthy. Kind of dangerous, because that means your baggage train, which is the other 2 horses, two horses that this guy has, when the army gets defeated, the baggage train isn't just going to be plundered by your enemy, it's going to go over to your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And your supplies are going to go over to the enemy. There was a big battle, I think, was it Hattin? No, it was after Hattin. The Crusaders were all trapped up on a big mountain and the Janissaries were assaulting them. They couldn't get to the water supply. So what they did instead, they allowed the Janissaries to come up to them and then they hacked the Janissaries down and stole their water. So the Janissaries were effectively, for about 3 or 4 days, were bringing water to the Crusaders. And if they'd have stayed at the bottom of the hill and not attacked, it wouldn't have been a problem. Sorry about that, I just got interrupted by the telephone. I've completely forgot what I've already said. But typically these troops are... Oh, yes, Hattin. No, not Hattin, yeah. If you could capture the baggage, you could take... The slaves wouldn't be loyal to their masters, basically. Which is not good for their army when you lose it, really. But it's not important for the game. It's you could have stuff on the battlefield, but
make it complicated.
Well, in real battles, there were loads of civilians at battles. There were loads of civilians people who would just turn up to watch. Lots of people who come out from the local town to watch and see what was going on.
Yeah.
But when you actually play games, you're not going to have a load of people sat on a hill with a drinks decanter having a picnic watching a battle, because it would look silly. It would just look daft, and that's it's just an interesting point of the sort of way that it worked. Shield wise, they carry the same types of shield as everyone else, round shields, teardrop shaped shields. Not a full kite shield, wasn't that deep. It was actually a round shield with a sort of bit that came out at the bottom, and that was because many of the troops fought on horseback, and same reason as the kite shield. However, you also needed to manhandle it on foot, so the shield is shorter than what you like a Norman kite shield or an early First Crusade kite shield, because the kite shields are too long. These are more for fighting on foot, but you can use it on horseback as well, which makes it useful. Also, it makes it slightly easier to make a shield fall. But that's just the thing. They carried bows because, of course, they were designed to fight on horseback. So the good thing about the unit is it has the same firepower as an actual regular bow unit, because everyone carried a bow, not just the back rank. So you have long range of 3, short range of 3, which means you could fire as if you're a bow unit, but fight as if you're an infantry unit. That's better than nothing. And that's really probably the best thing about this unit. It's heavy infantry, which means it gets a +1 under fire, and it can fire arrows itself. I think that would make it a very useful, versatile unit, although combat is low. It's up to you what you do with it. It's really one of the reasons we decided to do this particular period, because it is such a weird... The armour lists are so strange. Yeah. Any questions?
No.
None whatsoever?
No.
So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. We are at the end of the Ayyubid army so far. There's one more unit I need to get, but I haven't got around to doing it yet.
What is it?
Light cavalry.
Oh.
Light horse. I haven't got any light horse at all for the Ayyubid army. I've got 2 boxes of heavy cavalry, or medium cavalry. I need 1 box of light horsemen. And then as the army gets bigger, I'll just increase it by getting 1 box after another,
yeah,
as we do it. But for the now, we're going to start off as skirmish and then work as way up. So this is it for the Ayyubid army. I hope you've enjoyed all the videos about it. And if I forget I just said that and accidentally put it on before another video, then take this one as the end. So thank you very much for watching. Over to him for the
end. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and comment down below what you think of the Ayyubid army. That's everything from me.
And everything from him. Goodbye.
See ya.